State Department of Health would use a management plan as a means to notify growers to provide the performance standards for keeping the growing areas open. They would also perhaps ask growers to sign off per the management plan, that they would follow the best management practices that are qualified. The State Department of Health would also periodically provide this to the FDA as a means for analysis as compliance with the NSSB standards. That's how the state health would operate, and they'd probably tie it right back into their classification as they do their annual classification program when they do conditionally approved or open or closed. You can see that's similar to mass plants today.
And this is important, the national standards is important for the state to comply with those, because that allows interstate commerce in the shellfish industry, which is really important to our economy and the shellfish. So the state really can't go off on their own in that regard.
So, and DNR has authority under a WAC 332 where they can do supplemental planning and they can have management plans adopted on their state-owned aquatic lands. So each jurisdiction has a different role. So the stakeholder group, again, is meeting. We have a calendar of events, and we're basically going to draft a plan and go to public meeting with it, and then see a citizen response, and then finalize that per the schedule attached in the agenda request. And let's see. So the draft plan would be finalized by February, and then a public meeting, draft plan would be finalized by middle of January. And then a public meeting at the end of January at Fort Flagler State Park, and then a follow-up with the stakeholders group to finalize the plan, and we would put this into action and ask the commissioners also to adopt it in February, anticipating a May 1 Mystery Bay management plan implementation and the voting season to start. That's a general background of those types of issues. Phil, do you have any follow-up?
Yeah, so I think just to emphasize, I think there are a couple of drivers to this effort. The main one being that the Department of Health has conditionally approved a portion of Mystery Bay for shellfish rearing and harvest. And that carries with it that conditional approval carries with it a seasonal closure. And so really a driver of this effort is to try to change the distribution and density of mooring buoys and boats in Mystery Bay so that the Department of Health can change its approval from conditionally approved to approved, which would then lift the seasonal closure, which begins April 1st, I believe. Is that correct?
May 1st.
May 1st,
but
sorry.
They have to notice in April.
Okay, sorry, thank you. So, which begins May 1st. So we have a time clock ticking here that we're working against, trying to get that conditional approval changed to a outright approval, thereby lifting the seasonal closure. And in the longer term, and dealing with the different stakeholders, and I want to commend both community development and our Department of Health for doing a good job of working with tribal, state, and other interests. Our longer term goal is to make sure that Mystery Bay is managed in such a fashion that it will stay approved and not at some point revert back into conditional approval. So we want to make sure, basically we're trying to protect an important shellfish industry that both takes place in and through Mystery Bay and keep Mystery Bay open. So that's what we're working towards. And we're doing so at a time when the landscape regulatorily is changing. We currently are operating under our existing shoreline master program, and we are in the process, as you are so well aware, of adopting eventually a new SMP. So we're looking at what can we do under the existing SMP to try to guarantee that the shellfish industry will stay open and support that important economic industry in our county. The standards that you've put in place in the new SMP, when it is adopted, unless there's substantial changes, go a long way towards providing the kinds of protections and regulatory oversight to allow DCD to secure its future. But the question is, what do we do now? And this plan is part of it. Now, back to you.
Some of the discussion at the stakeholder meeting and part of the group is trying to freeze the playing field so we can accurately depict what's on the ground, take the necessary enforcement actions to remove any illegal buoys, and to progressively move forward with the plan through implementation and prevent any closures coming May 1st. And with that, I would ask that the commissioners consider an outright moratorium on permitting and mooring buoys in Mystery Bay. And as such, I have drafted an ordinance. It's a very sensitive issue. I've drafted an ordinance with findings correlating to a moratorium provision of the Shoreline Master Management Act. And if the board is willing, I'd like to approach you with and recommend to you a moratorium at this time. That you take action immediately, that the public interest would be fulfilled in terms of freezing the playing field so that the agencies can move forward and take the actions necessary to keep this very important economic resource available to our community. So I've drafted this particular moratorium.
We redo this every 6 months like some other
It's a 6 months
moratorium.
6 month moratorium.
Yeah, good.
What percentage of these boats are liveaboards, you know?
I understand only a couple are
A couple.
liveaboards, and that's not allowed by state laws. GF stands for grandfather.